So guess what? You know how Pfizer, they didn't test to see if their vaccine stopped transmission. When the president of Pfizer, Bourla, he tweeted out many times and said many times that the vaccine prevents transmission 100%. I don't have those tweets ready because this just broke. So Ezra Levant from the Rebel News confronted, I don't know where they got him. Maybe he's over at the WEF, but they got him. And they asked him the question that no corporate journalist will ask him. Watch this.
Mr. Bourla, can I ask you, when did you know that the vaccines didn't stop transmission? How long did you know that without saying it publicly?
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Answer that question. I mean, we now know that the vaccines didn't stop transmission, but why did you keep it secret? You said it was 100% effective, then 90%, then 80%, then 70%. But we now know that the vaccines do not stop transmission. Why did you keep that secret?
Have a nice day.
I won't have a nice day until I know the answer. Why did you keep it a secret that your vaccine did not stop transmission?
Is it time to apologise to the world, sir? To give refunds back to the countries that poured all their money into your vaccine that doesn't work, your ineffective vaccine?
Yeah, you have a go there, right?
Are you not ashamed of what you've done in the last couple of years?
Do you have any apologies to the public, sir?
Are you proud of it? You've made millions on the backs of
Billions.
people's entire livelihoods. How does that feel to walk the streets as a millionaire on the backs of the regular person at home in Australia, in England, in Canada?
What do you think about on your yacht, sir? What do you think about on your private jet? Are you worried about product liability? Are you worried about myocarditis?
What about the sudden deaths?
What do you have to say about young men dropping dead of heart attacks every day? Why won't you answer these basic questions? No apologies, sir.
Do you think you should be charged criminally for some of the criminal behaviour you've obviously been a part of?
How much money have you personally made off the vaccine?
How many boosters do you think it'll take for you to be happy enough with your earnings? Nothing?
Who did you meet with here in secret? Will you disclose who you met with?
Great question.
These guys are on.
Who
Who did you pay commissions to?
No, Ryan Grimm calls these guys terrorists and right-wing white supremacists. That's what he calls these guys. That's what The Intercept and Breaking Points will probably call these guys, white supremacists, if you turn into Rachel and Sagar.
In the past, Pfizer has paid $2.3 billion in fines for deceptive marketing. Have you engaged in that same conduct again?
Whoa!
Are you under investigation like you were before for your deceptive marketing, sir?
If any other product in the world doesn't work as promised, you get a refund. Should you not refund to countries that laid out billions
Yes.
for your ineffective vaccine?
Yes.
Are you used to only sympathetic media, so you don't know how to answer any questions?
Shame on you, sir.
Shame on you. That's Albert Bourla, the boss of Pfizer. His people were pushing us around a little bit.
Mate, he's pretty fit. I don't reckon he's had one jab.
I'm huffing and puffing a bit. At least I didn't have any myocarditis.
I dare say he's shocked that in his safe space at the WEF here in Davos that he was challenged in a way that he's never to date been challenged.
Well, that's the thing. We're not accredited media here. We're on the outside of the perimeter. So he's only used to the softballs from
That's
CNN and MSNBC and people like that. I asked him a real question about product liability. No answer. A real question about Pfizer's past deceptive practices. You know, they paid the largest fine in American history to the Justice Department for deceptive marketing. I don't know if that's underway right now. I don't know if they're being investigated, but I think they should be. When did he know that the vaccine didn't actually stop transmission? I wanted to find out because surely he knew before we knew. Why didn't he tell us? I don't know. Avi, I'm really proud of that question. It was like a kind of walking scrum.
Joint effort there, because
So that was fantastic.
Yes.
You'll never. They're 100% right. They're not accredited media, and you'll never see those questions from CNN or Rachel Maddow or anybody. You'll never see the New York Times, Washington Post. Nobody's ever going to ask those questions. The Young Turks certainly won't ever ask those questions. Jack Uger, they don't even know what questions to ask. They have no idea about anything. They're the most uninformed people in the world. But tip of the hat to Rebel News. What a thrill! That's when journalism can really get you excited.
Yes.
That was awesome. That was amazing. But I also have to tell you, I'm just reporting this as a story. I'm reporting that this happened at Davos, and that's the head of Pfizer and a news crew confronted him. I'm just reporting that. I'm not endorsing what they're saying because, as you know, I think the vaccine is safe and effective, and it does slow transmission and contraction, even though Pfizer never tested for it. YouTube knows better. And so it does slow and it'll keep you from becoming ill or in the hospital or dead. So it's great. The vaccine's great. The fact that he doesn't want to talk about it or answer a question, and no one in corporate media will ever ask him those questions because they're paid by him, that doesn't mean anything. The vaccine is safe and effective, and it's fantastic. It doesn't, just because the guy who made $100 billion selling it around the world won't answer a simple question about it, that doesn't mean anything. YouTube knows better. That was great. Great work. Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there. Hey, this is Jimmy. Who's this?
Jimmy, this is Kevin Spacey.
Ah, hello there, Mr. Spacey.
I'd like to speak to Aaron Mate, please.
What? I'm sorry, he's not here right now.
I thought he was guest hosting for you on your internet program.
Yeah, he was while I was gone. I'm back now. That was last week.
Always a day late and a dollar short. He's a rather fetching, charming young man. Oh, well, I suppose you'll do.
Oh, good to hear. Can I ask why you're calling?
Yes, but only if you do so politely and with respect. Allow me to cut to the chase. The Kevin Spacey rehabilitation overdrive is proceeding apace. Don't get in the way or you get mowed down.
I see. From what I understand, you're still facing sexual assault charges in the UK. So what exactly do you mean?
Well, as you know, we are in the middle of awards season. Actors and actorettes are receiving awards for their acting from esteemed institutions. And I am happy to report, am among these lauded thespians.
You won an award?
Yes, I won an award. Is that hard for you to face? Well, you need to face it, Jimmy Dore. Face my award.
Jesus Christ. Well, congratulations, Kevin Spacey. Did you win a Critics' Choice Award?
Not exactly, no.
Not exactly? What does that mean? A Writers Guild Award?
No, it doesn't matter what award. It matters that I won an award. During awards season. That means Jack's back, baby. Spacey in your facey.
Okay. Sorry, but I'm not going to be impressed unless I know what award you won.
Well, aren't you a tiresome little snob?
Well, maybe you should just hang up then.
Okay, wait. Fine, I'll tell you. I was awarded a prize recognizing my contribution to the filmmaking arts by the National Museum of Cinema.
I'm sorry, I never heard of the National Museum of Cinema.
Well, then you're dumb.
Is it here in L.A.?
No, not exactly.
New York?
Turin.
Where is Turin?
Italy. I was given an Italian movie award, which is inherently fancier than any tawdry stateside trinket that could have been tossed by the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. And I gave a speech, Jimmy. I gave a speech that applauded the fact that they had, quote, the guts to recognize my genius in a world full of cowards and hypocrites.
Very gutsy indeed.
Thank you. I mean, on their behalf.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, my point stands. Now that I'm receiving awards again, I think it is clear that my comeback is well on its way. Cancel culture ain't got nothing on me.
I see.
So, now that you know the lay of the land, Jimmy Dore, now that you know that the rehabilitation of Spacey has finally and triumphantly arrived, do you have any work for me?
Me?
Yes, you.
Mr. Spacey, we don't hire actors. This isn't a play or a movie that we do here.
Well, maybe you should open your mind, expand your horizons. Have one segment where you talk about whatever it is you talk about, and then another one where I do a soliloquy from the Richard III.
That wouldn't make any sense at all. Why are you asking me for work?
Because I need work. I need to pay for all these legal bills for all my sexual assaults, dummy.
Don't you have a manager or an agent?
They both drop me because they're cowards.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, then I'm going to sue you.
Sue you? Why would you sue me?
I don't know. Sue you. Sue everybody. Look, I won an award. That means I can act and harass twinks if I want to. Those are the new rules. Get used to it. I will use all the power in my disposal to force people to put me in things. The universe has spoken. Spacey is back. Deal with it or be a dinosaur.
Wow, you really are an unhinged megalomaniac, aren't you?
Well, of course, I'm a stage actor by training. Expect to be hearing from my lawyer soon. Well, not soon, per se. He's a little busy right now. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there. Hey, this is Jimmy Dore. Who's this?
Jimmy, is President Joe Biden.
Oh, hi, Mr. President.
You're back. Thank God. I was so fucking confused last week. I was talking to some guy who wasn't you. I felt like I was in outer space, man.
Yes, that must have been very confusing for you, Mr. President.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah?
You wouldn't have any documents on it, would you?
Government documents? No, of course not. Why would I have those here?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's a long shot, but you wouldn't believe where we're finding some of these damn things. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. We found some in my neighbor's garage, for Christ's sake.
Wow.
Yeah. And a classified memo about Ukraine popped up at a Cane's Chicken outside of Clarksville, Tennessee. We must have dropped it there at a campaign stop in 2020. It was lodged behind the deep fryer the whole time. And big thanks to alert citizen and night manager Darius T. Hogg for bringing it to our attention.
Well, this is certainly something.
Yeah. We're even finding some of these damn papers in various state and local government buildings. So now the Attorney General of Vermont knows about the aliens that we have in storage. So needless to say, we're going to have to arrange a little accident for her. This whole damn thing is one big mess, Jimmy.
It sounds like it. How are you dealing with the blowback from this scandal?
Blaming Republicans.
What? Why?
Well, what the hell else are we going to do, Casa Goo? It's the best play.
How?
Well, obviously, they're making a big deal of it.
As they well should.
All right, settle down, Scritty Politti. They're squawking like a bunch of crazy birds about these papers. They're just papers, Jimmy. So our strategy is to make the issue not about the papers, but how the GOP is trying to politicize what should be a routine investigation into a run-of-the-mill foul-up.
I see. How deft.
I can hear just fine, asshole. So once again, we just make them look unreasonable. That's the way. It's always been the way.
So I guess Trump's documents aren't a big deal then either, huh?
All right, that's different. He had them at his place, and he knew they were there. I didn't know anything about shit, as usual. And my damn papers are all over the country.
And that's better somehow? Wait, didn't you do this joke last week?
How the hell am I supposed to know or remember last week, Evenosen?
What? All right, stay on the line, Mr. President. I got another call coming in. Hey, this is Jimmy Dore Show. Jimmy speaking. Oh!
Hello, Jimmy. This is former Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, hi, Governor.
I understand you have the president on the line. My. Hi, Andy. Mr. President, as it so happens, I was just in my storage locker where I keep all my crap that I had to move out of the governor's mansion, like a nasty divorce. And lo and behold, what do I find in a file box but a file labeled classified? God damn it. And I was very confused because there were no state-level classified documents. So this couldn't have been a New York file. So what in the world could it be? All right, quit dragging this out and get to the point.
No, please keep dragging it out. This is fun.
Shut up, Jimmy. Well, I open up this file, and what do my little eyes see but a bevy of but a bevy of documents from your vice presidency. Imagine my surprise. Right? Oh, okay. Just hand them over, will you? Hold on now, not so fast. What are they worth to you?
Yeah, ooh.
They belong to the government, Cuomo. Oh, you might want this one for yourself. Why, what's it about? What's the subject heading? Oh. Ukraine? A little worse. Oh, shit, what? Yemen!
Oh, snap!
Yeah, all right, I'll send somebody over to get that today. Well, now, hold on. I'm going to need a favor for you, Mr. President. I may have some problems that I need to go away. You think you can help me with that, Joe? For the file? Yeah. What? Look, all right. Whatever you need. Just all right. Not on the live stream, okay, asshole. All right. Pleasure doing business with you, Mr. President. See, Jimmy, I love it when my colleagues in the Democratic Party can be reasonable for a change.
Yeah, what a shocking turn of events. Okay, gentlemen, I need to get going. Could you two please just take your shocking malfeasance elsewhere?
Fine. Andy, just call me on the other phone, okay? You know, the other one. Bye, Jimmy. Don't tell anyone about this, goddammit. Yeah, Jimmy. This is a little secret between bulls. Government bulls. Bye-bye.
Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there. Hey, guess what? COVID-19 drug makers pressured Twitter to censor activists pushing for a generic vaccine. You're kidding. Yeah, turns out in mid-December 2020, Nina Morchhauser, let's call her Nina Munchauser, a lobbyist for Twitter in Europe, emailed colleagues with a dire warning. The drug maker BioNTech, along with the German government, had contacted her with news of an imminent campaign targeting the pharmaceutical companies developing the COVID-19 vaccine, she wrote. The authorities are warning about serious consequences of the action, i.e. posts and a flood of comments that may violate the terms of service, as well as the takeover of users' accounts are to be expected, wrote Munchauser. Especially the personal accounts of the management of the vaccine manufacturers are said to be targeted. Accordingly, fake accounts could also be set up. The campaign they were concerned about was the launch of an international push to force the drug industry to share the intellectual property and patents associated with coronavirus vaccine development. Making the patent available, in turn, would allow countries across the world to swiftly manufacture generic vaccines and other low-cost therapeutics to deal with the ongoing pandemic. Munchauser, while alerting several site integrity and safety teams at Twitter, forwarded an email from BioNTech spokesperson Jasmina Elatovic, who asked Twitter to hide activist tweets targeting her company's account over a period of 2 days. Munchauser flagged the corporate accounts of Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, AstraZeneca for her colleagues to monitor and shield from activists. Munchauser also asked colleagues to monitor the hashtags #PeoplesVaccine and #JoinCTAP, a reference to the World Health Organization's COVID-19 Technology Access Pool, a program promoted by developing countries to accelerate the development of vaccines through the equitable sharing of research and manufacturing capacity. She noted that the group Global Justice Now was spearheading the action with an online sign-up form. It is not clear to what extent Twitter took any action on BioNTech's request. In response to Munchauser's inquiry, several Twitter officials chimed in, debating what action could or could not be taken. Sue Fern Tao, a member of the company's safety team, noted that a quick scan of the activist campaign showed nothing that violated the company's terms of service and asked for more examples to get a better sense of the content that may violate our policies. But it shows the extent to which pharmaceutical giants engaged in a global lobbying blitz to ensure corporate dominance over the medical products that became central to combating the pandemic. Ultimately, the campaign to share COVID vaccine recipes around the world failed. Hey, how Bill Gates helped derail the creation of a people's vaccine. That's right. We've talked about this on the show before, but here it is again. BioNTech's Elatovic, in response to a request for comment, stressed that the firm takes its societal responsibility seriously and is investing in solutions to improve the health of people regardless of their income. Jesus Christ. They're eagerly anticipating the progress of grafting technology so we can implant extra arms, allowing for the triple CK this sort of corporate PR statement deserves. In November, the Bureau of Investigation Journalism published a lengthy report showing that pharmaceutical companies went to great lengths to stifle efforts to share pandemic-related patents and IP, including threats to the leadership of Belgium, Colombia, and Indonesia. Holy shit. The Intercept has also detailed the domestic lobbying push to block support for a special World Trade Organization waiver necessary for the rapid creation of generic pandemic medicine. Wow. These people are... And you don't think these... How could any conspiracy that you could think of that involves Big Pharma and the government, how could you ever dismiss any of them out of hand? If you could think of something nefarious, the government and Big Pharma are doing it. They won't, if they really believed in their vaccines and COVID virus and the pandemic and all that, why wouldn't you want to make that available to vaccinate everybody in the world so we could get rid of the pandemic? Or is it because you never believed it and you knew this was a money grab? Is that what this is? I don't know. German media has similarly reported on the aggressive efforts by BioNTech to build support from the German government in opposing the waiver at the WTO. The largely successful assault against the creation of generic vaccines resulted in an unprecedented explosion in profit for a few select biopharmaceutical drug interests. Pfizer-BioNTech generated a staggering $37 billion in revenue from its share of mRNA vaccines in 2021 alone. I think that the total is $100 million so far, pretty sure, making it one of the most lucrative drug products in the world. Nick Dearden, director of Global Justice Now, noted that at the time of BioNTech's censorship request, much of the world was under various lockdown orders, making digital forms of protest all the more vital for influencing public policy. To try and stifle digital dissent during a pandemic when tweets and emails are some of the only forms of protest available to those locked in their homes is deeply sinister. The BioNTech request was not only the only channel through which vaccine makers sought to shape content moderation actions at Twitter. By the way, it's funny this is being reported in The Intercept because they were the biggest COVIDians in the world. That guy, Ken Klippenstein, used to come at me about ivermectin on Twitter. He was one of those guys calling it horse dewormer, repeating Big Pharma propaganda proudly on Twitter in public. That's that Ken Klippenstein guy. He's one of those paid for hacks over at The Intercept. That's why it's weird. The Intercept, Ryan Grimm also got COVID 100% wrong. He got the vaccines wrong. He got everything wrong. And that's why it's interesting that I think this is that Li Fang guy. So he's the only guy who still has his head on straight over at The Intercept, kind of. Stronger, a campaign run by Public Good Projects, a public health nonprofit specializing in large-scale media monitoring programs, regularly communicated with Twitter on regulating content related to the pandemic. Wow. The firm worked closely with the San Francisco social media giant to help develop bots to censor vaccine misinformation, and at times sent direct requests to Twitter with lists of accounts to censor and verify. Internal Twitter emails show regular correspondence between an account manager at Public Good Projects and various Twitter officials, including Todd O'Boyle, lobbyist with the company, who served as a point of contact with the Biden administration. The content moderation requests were sent throughout 21 and early 2022. The entire campaign, newly available tax documents and other disclosures show, was entirely funded by the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, a vaccine industry lobbying group. So when they say that it's a nonprofit, Public Goods Projects is a nonprofit, but it's being funded by somebody, and it's being funded by a vaccine lobbying group. Bio, which is financed by companies such as Moderna and Pfizer, provided Stronger with $1,275,000 in funding for the effort, which included tools for the public to flag content on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for moderation. Many of the tweets flagged by Stronger contained absolute falsehoods, including claims that vaccines contain microchips and were designed to intentionally kill people. But others hinged on a gray area of vaccine policy through which there is reasonable debate, such as requests to label or take down content critical of vaccine passports and governmental mandates to require vaccination. One tweet flagged by the bio-backed moderation effort read, if a vaccinated person and an unvaccinated person have roughly the same capacity to carry, shed, and transmit the virus, particularly in its Delta form, what differences does implementing a vaccination passport actually make to spread the virus? Ooh, that's a question I wasn't even allowed to ask on YouTube. That's a good question because listen to what Bill Gates says to that question.
It'd be more valuable if you had an infection-blocking vaccine. I mean, the idea of checking if people are vaccinated, if you have breakthrough infections, what's the point?
Okay, I'll play it for you one more time. Should Bill Gates be censored too? Because listen to what he's saying.
It'd be more valuable if you had an infection-blocking vaccine. I mean, the idea of checking if people are vaccinated, if you have breakthrough infections, what's the point?
So what's the difference between what he's saying and what this person said? If a vaccinated person and unvaccinated, but that's censored. But Bill Gates, should he be censored? Many pharmaceutical lobby groups made exaggerated claims about the danger of sharing vaccine technology. Pharma, another drug industry lobby group, falsely claimed on Twitter that any effort to allow the creation of a generic COVID vaccine would result in placing all 4.4 million jobs supported by the entire American drug industry at risk. Jobs, baby. We can't give vaccines to poor people because of jobs. In a December 2020 email thread further discussing how to monitor BioNTech and respond to the vaccine equity campaign engaging in spammy behavior, potentially in violation of the social media's company's policies, Holger Kirsting, a Twitter spokesperson in Germany, offered several links to tweets in potential violation of the policy. Two of the tweets were from an account owned by Terry Bra, a retired bricklayer in a small town outside of Liverpool. The messages called on the chief executives of Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca to share vaccine technology with poor countries. Reached for comment, Bra reacted with surprise that his messages were being monitored for possible fake content. I'm actually 74 and still living, said Bra with a chuckle. I was a bricklayer all my life, just like my dad. I'm no Che Guevara, but I've been an activist, a trade unionist, and a socialist. All I did was sign a tweet. I wish I could have done more, really. So there it is, ironically, in The Intercept, which we're for all that censorship. The Intercept is very pro-censorship. The Intercept censored Hunter Biden's laptop story, and they fired Glenn Greenwald over it. So that's why it's weird that this is appearing in The Intercept, because they're very, very pro-censorship and pro-government censorship, and they were COVIDians, and they lied about ivermectin, and they lied about all this stuff. So that's why it's weird that it's appearing in The Intercept. They must be backpedaling like motherfuckers. But there you go. So just like we thought, the liars were censoring the truth tellers. And I'm still waiting for my apology from everybody. Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there. Here's somebody who I thought also got it. You remember AOC before she was in Congress, she used to say things like this?
The Democratic Party does not do more unless it is pushed. So we need to push them. And they don't like it. I think I annoy them, but but that is our job. That's our job.
She voted to expand NATO, voted to fund the Iron Dome, voted for the CARES Act, voted for $40 billion to Ukraine, deferred to caucus leadership on a coup, voted to give cops more money, wouldn't fight for Medicare for all in a pandemic because 15-hour was more doable, and didn't fight for that either. Just to let you know. And hey, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez an insider now? Yes, and this is the proof. Here's the proof. So someone asked her about, because what the right wing just did, you all saw, Matt Gaetz and a handful of right wingers extracted amazing concessions for their vote for speaker. That's what they were supposed to do 2 years ago for forced to vote, and they didn't. I mean, meaning her and the squad. They could have done the exact same thing. They could have gotten all kinds of concessions because Nancy Pelosi couldn't become speaker without their vote. So somebody asks her on a live stream, "Hey, why didn't you do the same thing that they did 2 years ago?"
Oh boy.
You ready? Here we go.
And it really goes to show how much you need of a coalition in order to really forcefully negotiate for these things. So when people say, why don't we do this? First of all, there's a lot of cost and dysfunction. Second of all, those people who are holding out right now, they may have made certain structural gains, but they have also made incredible reputational and relational harm within their caucus. And so if you are trying to get something done within your caucus moving forward, you still need members of your caucus. And that at the core is an element of electoral politics that is simply inescapable.
So I don't know if you realize what she's doing, but what she's doing here is she's coming out of the closet and she is officially renouncing her bring the ruckus. Remember, you got to bring a ruckus. You got to push the Democratic Party. She is officially renouncing that persona, and she's admitting that she's an institutionalist working within the Democratic Party. Here we go.
Even when you look at someone like Bernie Sanders' tenure in the House, where he was the amendment king, you needed your party to pass your amendments. And so, you have this faction that is in a lot of trouble moving forward, including despite having made certain structural gains.
So, again, I'll tell you what she just said again. The Freedom Caucus won, she says. But they really lost because now everybody hates them. And then how are they going to get things done now that everybody hates them? They already got everything done they wanted done. They got it. And now those people who did that, who withheld their vote for McCarthy from speaker and got those concessions, now they have an even stronger hand in negotiating moving forward now that they've demonstrated that they will vote together as a bloc and hold firm until they get what they want. They actually have more power. But according to AOC, it's not about using your leverage to get things you want. It's about making friends with other legislators in your party. That's what she's saying. She's saying, now a lot of people don't like them, are angry at them. Yeah, we didn't send you there. It's not a prom. We sent you there to do a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party. And now she's just admitting, I'm an institutionalist, you guys. I work in on the inside. We're never going to cross the party. Now, you heard what she said. Now watch this.
What the Bronx and Queens needs is Medicare for all. We can do it now. It takes political courage. Start bringing the ruckus on the Democratic Party. That is our job. It's great that everyone thinks these issues are important. We need to make them urgent. This country has only ever changed for the better by groups of people that were willing to put everything on the line for a better future. That's how we got the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement. That's how we got the labor movement, queer rights and marriage equality. It didn't happen by people playing it safe. We have to give it all we got. Don't people realize that the most powerful position you can be in is when you are not materially attached to a position of power? If you're a one-term Congress member, so what? You can make 10 years worth of change in one term if you're not afraid. The Democratic Party does not do more unless it is pushed. So we need to push them. And they don't like it. I think I annoy them, but but that is our job. That's our job. All of Washington is not incentivized, on the whole, not incentivized to work in actually expediting guaranteed health care in the United States. Now, does that mean it's not going to happen? Absolutely not. because mass movement organizing can force it to happen. Force it to happen. Do not trust any political party to automatically work in your interest.
I call on everybody in independent media to join this mission.
Force it to happen.
Force the Congress to show which side are they really on. No vote for Nancy Pelosi unless Medicare for All is put on the House floor for a vote.
Start bringing the ruckus on the Democratic Party.
So now she says, "Oh, I gotta be nice to people. We gotta work together. We gotta be united. I gotta play an inside game." The people who did that, they caused a ruckus. Nobody likes them. So here she's gonna go on. She has more.
I mean, this was like very bloody. Like, think of it like a really bloody bar fight. Like, no one comes out with all their teeth, without any broken noses. With like, everyone has had some blood drawn, and we haven't even been sworn in yet. As opposed to the Democratic caucus. Now, the strength here, when you are in a minority, the play here is to be united as much as possible. Because if you don't have people who break, then you can pick off the other side with just a matter of a handful of people. So as long as Democrats don't, remain united in a minority, then all the votes you need to win on a certain thing are, depending on how a margin is, 3, 4, or 5.
So now again, listen to what she's saying. So when you're in the majority, like they were for the last 2 years, that's when you don't need to hang together as a party. When in the past 2 years did the squad ever break with the Democratic Party? Or do you have to do whatever the party tells you, whether you're in the minority or in the majority? So when you're in the minority, that's when you have to vote together. What about when you're in the majority? That's when you have to vote together, because that's what they did. They voted together the whole time. When are you ever allowed to break and go against your party? So according to AOC, the way to achieve progressive objectives in the next 2 years, what she just said, so now that the Democrats are in the minority, they just need to pick off a few Republicans and then they can pass legislation that they like. I'm not kidding. That's what she's saying. So the way to achieve progressive objectives in the next 2 years is by getting Republicans to vote for them. That's her big idea. That's what she's saying. Which progressive goals are going to get support from the entire Democratic caucus and also a half a dozen Republicans? What progressive idea? What? Everybody in the Democratic Party plus about a half a dozen Republicans. What idea is that? Nothing. There's no idea except funding Ukraine. Not funding America. She goes on.
And people say Lauren Boebert has more spine than you. Lauren Boebert won her race by 500 votes. Lauren Boebert took a Trump plus 9 district and nearly lost it to an up and coming Democrat as an incumbent member of Congress. Lauren Boebert is dramatically weakened. And the people of Colorado nearly sent her packing. If 500 people voted differently that day, this would not be happening right now. And so,
Lauren Boebert is elected. 500 people didn't vote the other way. She then used her leverage to get concessions from the powerful. She did it. And she's saying, you better not do that because she might lose her seat next time. What happened to this?
Don't people realize that the most powerful position you can be in is when you are not materially attached to a position of power? If you're a one-term Congress member, so what? You can make 10 years worth of change in one term if you're not afraid.
Wait, let me play this again.
And people say Lauren Boebert has more spine than you. Lauren Boebert won her race by 500 votes. Lauren Boebert took a Trump plus 9 district and nearly lost it to an up and coming Democrat as an incumbent member of Congress. Lauren Boebert is dramatically weakened. And the people of Colorado nearly sent her packing. If 500 people voted differently that day, this would not be happening right now. And so, if you're a Republican, if you're a hard standing Republican, she almost cost you your majority.
Wait, what?
Don't people realize that the most powerful position you can be in is when you are not materially attached to a position of power? If you're a one-term Congress member, so what? You can make 10 years worth of change in one term.
So that is what's called a 180. That's what's called a 180. Lauren Boebert is doing what she just said that she's supposed to do. And AOC sounds like a Republican. Oh, you can't go against your party. You have to fall in line. You can't just do what you want and extract concessions from the party. You have to go along with the party. You have to be friendly with these people because then you might lose your seat. I thought you didn't care about losing your seat. No, that's all she cares about. That's it. She just admitted it. One more.
This idea that like they are somehow winning, let's just also take a step back.
So this is how humiliated they are. They have to pretend like Matt Gaetz and the right wing didn't just have a crushing victory, which is what they got. A crushing victory, which embarrasses them. So now she has to do this and look like an idiot. But she knows that the white, suburban, college-educated women in suburbia are going to eat it up. They don't know what the fuck she's talking about. They just know they like championing the woman of color from the Bronx. They think it's a virtue signal. It makes them feel good about themselves. I'm better than those darn Republicans. I'm a good person.
And observe that none of these debates resulted in any policy substance. None.
It's not true. But that's not true. She's lying.
This is not a caucus that is organized. The Freedom Caucus is not organized around any core policy issue.
That's not true. That's not true either. So they got, how the Democrats had pay go? The Republicans have cut go. They got that, which means that you can't spend any more money unless you cut money somewhere else. And you can't raise, they got to cut. It's all about cutting the budget. So they do have a philosophy and goals, and they know what they want, and they got it. They got what they wanted.
We organize around Medicare for All. We organize around a Green New Deal. What? Like those concessions that, even if it's not the whole farm all at once, but the building blocks to get us there.
The building blocks would have been the force to vote for Medicare for All. That's a building block. What did you do to build? Nothing. They had 2 years. Nothing. They did nothing. How much closer are we to Medicare for All over the last 2 years because of how they built? They didn't do anything.
They stopped talking about it.
They stopped talking about it. So what she's saying is the Freedom Caucus didn't fight for policy concessions, which is a lie. But she says that's why if the squad had followed the forced to vote strategy, they also couldn't have fought for policy concessions. Is that what she's saying? She's saying that they didn't fight for policy concessions. Well, does that mean that you couldn't have? Why does the Freedom Caucus not negotiating for policies have anything to do with the squad not negotiating for anything? Okay, one more. I lied.
These folks, they're negotiating around committee assignments for themselves.
Like you.
Certain rules changes. Not all of them are bad, mind you, but not all of them are good either. And they're really organized around grievance.
So this is so pathetic. She has to try to pretend like they didn't win. They just won the Super Bowl, and she's trying to say they didn't really win. She's trying to say Michael Jordan, they didn't win. So it turns out, so she's saying that those people were only negotiating for committee assignments. Do you know that they got those committee assignments? Did you know that AOC pretended that that was something that they had negotiated for instead of doing force the vote? That they had negotiated for committee assignments? Did you know that they immediately got kicked off their committees after they voted for Nancy Pelosi? Yes. So turns out that negotiating for committee assignments is bad, according to her. What you really want to do is get kicked off your important committee like she and Katie Porter and other progressives did. Who knew that was the right play? You want to get kicked off important committees because that's what happened to her and Katie Porter. One more, I lied.
I think sometimes people conflate the necessary work of outside organizing with the internal work of legislating. And the fact of the matter is you cannot do one without the other. I mean,
whenever there's an outside organization that pushes them to do something, she turns on them and smears them like she did to the healthcare activists around Force the Vote. She said we're committing violence.
I do think there's a decent amount of organizing you can do outside of legislative goals. There's plenty. You can organize a tenants union. You can unionize your workplace. You can do all sorts of stuff.
Oh, it's
but
so easy.
The idea that you can push and emphasize legislative goals without an outside, that part I think is untenable.
She's just talking now. She's just flapping her lips because she doesn't mean any of it. But Kyle Kulinski will tell you she does.
At least as a progressive, actually just in general, because the right wing of the Democratic Party also organizes on the outside for their internal goals, but they do it with money. And as progressives, we have to do it with people. And so, when you have a base that focuses most of its ire towards the people on their side, because YouTube algorithms reward that.
So she's talking about me. So she's trying to make us doing exactly what she said again, cause a ruckus, hold their feet to the fire, push them, make them do it. But when you do that, she says, oh, you're just doing that for clicks. That's what she's saying. You hear it, right?
Towards the people on their side, because YouTube algorithms reward that. You're just playing into the hands of the capitalists who run those algorithms. And
so when Jimmy Dore criticizes me, he's just helping capitalists and doing it for clicks. He's helping capitalists. If you criticize me, you're helping capitalists. How convenient for you. Any criticism of you is helping our enemies. How convenient. She drives a Tesla and she's talking about capitalists. This is funny. She went to she goes to what's the ball? What is that ball called?
Met Gala.
She goes to the Met Gala with a slave carrying her dress.
Wearing a mask.
But if anybody criticizes her on YouTube, we're just doing it for clicks and we're helping the capitalists.
This is a team sport. And I think a lot of times people think elections are just about set it and forget it. I'm just going to pull my lever for someone and let them do the work. And if you're that kind of person, I'm not sitting here to knock that. But if you are a left or if you are a progressive organizer, what we need the most support in is support during game time, during legislating. And I can't tell you how common it is for us to look to guidance, look to the grassroots for guidance. And sometimes you don't hear anything until after something bad happens.
And except when we do get that guidance, like you did loudly for Force the Vote, you ignore it, turn on those activists, smear them, say they're committing violence against you, and send cops to their house. This isn't, she's such a bad, do you not see through? Is there anyone left who doesn't see through this? Is there? I guess there is. So she's doing the Barack Obama's trick of blaming the base strategy of telling activists and voters that it's their fault. That's what she's doing. You didn't vote hard enough. You didn't organize enough. We're sitting inside Congress. We don't know what to do. We're looking for you guys. That's what she's saying. We don't know what to do. We look for you for guidance. That's what does anyone believe that?
this is a team sport. And I think
So I just want to remind people of like how much people were on board for forced to vote until they didn't do it. Remember when Nina Turner said this?
That's the moment that we're in right now. And yes, the progressives should leverage. Absolutely, they should. And the Congressional Black Caucus and the Progressive Caucus all together. I mean, can you imagine? I can imagine this. Like, I've been playing this over in my head that I would love to see all of those caucuses come together to say, we are going to do what is right, not what is, but this should be easy too, but I'll just say, let's do what's right and not necessarily politically convenient. But it should, in this case though, Jordan, I can't even, this is right and it is politically correct to say that you're going to save the American people. I don't understand what is the problem? I don't understand. This just does not compute for me. So I just have this wild vision in my head that the Progressive and the Congressional Black Caucus will come together and say, you know what? In the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, enough is enough. We about to deliver this right here. Don't know what else is going to happen, but this right here, we're going to deliver for the American people. It has to happen.
And last question.
It didn't happen. So they didn't do it. So she was saying, I don't even know what to say. And then after they didn't do it, she says this.
It's okay to be disappointed, but the squad is ultimately the best that we have in terms of being able to push an agenda. And what that means is that you might not always agree with the methods. I need people to understand that when you are on the inside, it doesn't mean that you are selling out. I know they've gotten a lot of pressure, but they are the ones up there holding it down. They're pushing as hard as they can. And just because things are not going exactly the way, just because they're not using the exact tactics that some in the activist community want them to use, that doesn't mean that you throw them away. Because guess what? If you're throwing away members of the squad who are our best opportunity to get what we need, and also some members of that progressive caucus, then you're not going to have anybody there. So if the prerequisite, in summation, if the prerequisite for relationship means that I have to do, or the squad has to do everything you say, the way you say do it, then there's not much of a relationship at all. And that you're going to be disappointed. Hell, they're going to be disappointed with me.
And they were so disappointed they wouldn't vote for you. So that's a big difference, huh? That's a big difference from what she was saying before they didn't force the vote till after. And I guess like all lying politicians, lying Nina Turner didn't think people would see through her. Everyone sees through her. Does anyone who watch her show? She can't even crack 1,000 views on any of her videos. No one gives a shit what she has to say because they saw that she's a liar and a flip-flopper and she's going to lie to them at the behest of the powerful. She wasn't lying to defend activists. She was lying to defend politicians. And she betrayed herself. And they all betrayed themselves. And AOC is a betrayer of everything. Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there. So you remember how they count COVID? They overcounted COVID because this is how they counted COVID. Are you ready for this? This is health. I think this was the senior health advisor in Illinois.
I just want to be clear in terms of the definition of people dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.
I wasn't expecting that.
So watch this. So that Lena Wen, she's that CNN Washington Post doctor she was a crazy COVIDian, but now she's coming around. She's dumber than a pothead comedian, and she's a doctor. Birx and Fauci reject Fox News promoted theory that coronavirus deaths are inflated. That's one headline. Here's the next headline.
That's from April 2020.
That's right. Opinion: we are overcounting COVID deaths and hospitalizations, and that's a problem. That's January 13th, 2023. So the Washington Post said that, that theory, no, we reject it. It's a Fox News theory. You see how they put it? It's a Fox News theory. It's Fox News theory. You mean it didn't come from the Department of Health in Illinois? It came from Fox News? That's how they report stories to split the country. So here's the new opinion. Here it is, and it's by Lena Wen. Here we go. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the United States is experiencing around 400 COVID deaths every day. At that rate, there would nearly be 150,000 deaths a year. But are these Americans dying from COVID or with COVID? Now they're just getting around to asking this in the Washington Post in 2023. Something we've been asking since at least the summer of 2021. At least. It's good to see the Washington Post about a year and a half behind the Jagoff comedian. Wen also cited infectious disease physician Shira Doran, who figured out that in recent months, only about 30% of total hospitalizations with COVID were primarily attributed to the virus in Massachusetts hospitals, for example. Wen recounted Doran's experience at Tufts Medical Center, writing, during some days, she said, the proportion of those hospitalized because of COVID were as low as 10% of the total number reported who had COVID. So, way over reporting. Mentioning the first, she wrote, Robin Dretler, an attending physician at Emory Decatur Hospital and the former president of Georgia's chapter of Infectious Disease Society of America, estimates that at his hospital, 90% of patients diagnosed with COVID are actually in the hospital for some other illness. So, that's like by a factor of 9, right? Like 9, that's like to the 9th power. They're overestimating the deaths. I'm not a math surgeon, so don't quote me on the 9th power thing. Dretler told the analyst, since every hospitalized patient gets tested for COVID, many are incidentally positive. Wen noted how people with gunshot wounds or other serious illnesses often test positive for the virus and wrote, if these patients die, COVID might get added to their death certificate along with the other diagnoses. But the coronavirus was not the primary contributor to their death and often played no role at all. So when you see people out there tweeting, COVID killed 6 million people. I saw it today. Kyle Kalinske did it, I think. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's just repeating government propaganda. That's it. That's all that is. Now, we knew this long before these people. Dretler admitted this contributed to the imprecise reporting on COVID deaths and hospitalizations, which he added did not come from a place of bad intent. Fuck you. He denied that there was any conspiracy behind it to exaggerate coronavirus numbers for some nefarious purpose. Yes, there was. There was a conspiracy behind it to exaggerate coronavirus numbers for a nefarious purpose. Yes, there is. There still is. They get paid more. Epidemiologist Dr. Tracy Hugg responded to Wen's piece, stating, Spring 2021, the United States had good evidence that greater than 40% of child COVID admissions were incidental. 2021, Denmark announced they distinguished with versus from COVID hospitals, and COVID plus deaths in Denmark in 2022 were 60 to 70% incidental. So they're saying we knew this stuff in 2021. Why does it take the United States Washington Post, their doctors, to wait till 2023 to say this? Because there are frickin' paid for by Big Pharma. The doctor added, amazing how long it has taken the United States to accept this as a problem. Yes. Center for Security Policy senior analyst J. Michael Waller slammed the Washington Post over the column, stating, not long ago, the Washington Post was calling us conspiracy theorists for saying such things. It's Fox News. The Australian journalist Adam Creighton tweeted, people saying this is a year ago were booted off social media. So the difference between a conspiracy theory and a fact is about 6 months to a year. Dr. Lena Wen slammed after admitting there's been overcounting of COVID deaths 2.5 years late. So this is how I feel. I feel like this headline. She cited sources claiming that most patients diagnosed with COVID are actually in a hospital for some other illness. The article is titled, We are overcounting COVID deaths, and that's a problem. Wen's observations prompted readers on Twitter to complain, stating that it's 2.5 years too late. Here she is in July of 2021, pushing vaccine mandates as the only way to end the pandemic. You ready?
I think this really depends on what it is that we do at this point. So now we have this Delta variant that is much more contagious. Because it's more contagious, it's going to be even harder for us to reach herd immunity. We're going to have to vaccinate an even higher proportion of people to get there. What happens then if we end up having another variant developing that's even more contagious, that could cause more disease, that could evade the protection of our immune system?
So when a virus, as Dr. Robert Malone taught us on this show, when a virus like this mutates, it often becomes more contagious. Like she says, she leaves out the second part. When it becomes more contagious, it becomes less deadly, which is exactly what has happened to this virus. Now this virus presents the symptoms as a cold. Runny nose, headache, fever, mild body aches. She keeps saying, "This what about the next one? It's even more contagious. It's going to be more contagious," which sounds scary, but she doesn't tell you that second part. Why? Because she's a propagandist, and because her and everybody in her profession and everybody on CNN gets paid by Big Pharma.
And so how quickly we get this under control and which way we go depends on what we do now when it comes to vaccination, to overcoming disinformation. And what we really need to do at this point is to make vaccination the easy choice. It needs to be hard for people to remain unvaccinated. Right now, it's kind of the opposite. It's fine. I mean, it's easy if you're unvaccinated. You can do everything you want to do anyway. But at some point, these mandates by workplaces, by schools, I think it will be important to say, hey, you can opt out. But if you want to opt out, you have to sign these forms. You have to get twice weekly testing. Basically, we need to make getting vaccinated the easy choice. That is what it's going to take for us to actually end the pandemic.
So I knew more about the pandemic than she did when she said that, because I knew that wasn't true. I knew that because Dr. Robert Malone came on this show and told us that it's a leaky vaccine and you can't vaccinate your way out of a pandemic like this. He knew. And I knew before she's saying this on television, and none of these people know anything about what they're talking about, including her. If you came to this show, you would have got the accurate information. You go to CNN, you get medical misinformation. I bet that's never going to be taken down. I bet that's up on YouTube somewhere, and it'll never be taken down. It'll never be in CNN's Wikipedia page how they spread medical misinformation. Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there. Hey, guess what, everybody? The FDA vaccine advisors are disappointed and angry that the early data about new COVID-19 booster shot wasn't presented for review last year. What? So just so you know, when they started the booster program, the heads of the FDA's vaccine department resigned over the boosters. The two top heads of the FDA vaccine department that had been there for 30 years resigned over the boosters. Are they on 60 Minutes? Are they on Jimmy Kimmel? Are they on Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow? No, they're not. But we do have this. CNN is reporting this now. That's how, because CNN is just a big pharma mouthpiece. They get all their money from big pharma. So that's why this is a big deal. So FDA vaccine advisors disappointed and angry that early data about the new COVID-19 booster shot wasn't presented for review last year. Come on. Some vaccine advisors to the federal government say they're disappointed and angry that government scientists and the pharmaceutical company Moderna didn't present a set of infection data on the company's new COVID-19 booster during meetings last year when the advisors discussed whether the shot should be authorized and made available to the public. The data suggested that the possibility that the updated booster might not be any more effective at preventing COVID-19 infections than the original shots. So the data that they didn't show suggested that their booster might not be any more effective than the shot they already had. At a meeting of this FDA advisory group in June, and a meeting in September of a panel that advises the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the experts were presented with reams of information indicating that the new vaccine worked better than the one already on the shelves, according to a review of videos and transcripts of those meetings and slide presentations made by Moderna to the CDC and FDA officials. Dr. Stephen Hodge, the president of Moderna, made a presentation to the advisors and frequently referred to the information from the preprint study that had been posted 3 days before. Now, why is that interesting 3 days before? Because they're supposed to submit it way earlier than that so that the FDA has time to look at it and study the data, but they didn't. And so much so that this preprint study wasn't even included in the materials that they gave to the FDA to decide about the boosters. Wasn't even included. And this study, by the way, the study was, get this, funded by Moderna, and led by company scientists. And it had not been subjected to peer review or published in a medical journal even. And we're just, how come I'm just finding out about this now? The data, called immunogenicity data, was based on blood work done on study participants to assess how well each vaccine elicited antibodies that fight off the Omicron strain of the virus that causes COVID-19. The data that was not presented to the experts looked at actual infections, who caught COVID-19 and who did not. It found that 1.9% of the study participants who received the original boosters became infected. So almost 2% of the participants who received the original booster became infected. Among those who got the updated bivalent vaccine, the one that scientists hoped would work better, had a higher percentage of people became infected. So it went from 1.9% to 3.2%. Both versions of the shot were found to be safe. CNN lets you know. So what people have been predicting was going to happen is happening. And they hid it. They hid it. They hid the data. And there's some people who still want to mandate that. There are colleges that still have mandates for this. There are people at places of employment in Hollywood. You still have to be vaccinated. This infection data was far from complete. The number of study subjects who became infected was very small, and both the patients and the researchers were aware of who was getting the original shot And who was getting the new booster? That's not. I'm a pothead comedian, and I know that's not how you do a scientific trial. That's not how you do a study. It's supposed to be double blind. You're not the person giving it is not supposed to know, and the person getting it's not supposed to know. They both knew. And the study subjects who became infected was very small. Despite these imperfections, the data was included in a preprint study that was posted online in June, again in September in the FDA document, and then later that month in a top medical journal. And advisors to the FDA and the CDC said the data should have been shared with them too. Voila. The 6 FDA and CDC advisors interviewed by CNN said that this infection data, get this, you ready for this? Get this. They said this infection data that was hidden from them wouldn't have changed how they voted.
Okay.
Ha 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 ha! Anybody want to buy a bridge in Florida? It wouldn't have changed how they voted, they said. Because the data had such limitations, but it still should have been presented to them. It wouldn't have changed. Really? So going from actually people who got the new vaccine had a higher rate of being infected, that wouldn't have changed your mind. Once they said, what? Oh, so there's 3 reasons why they should have been presented with the data. The first one is that the potential impact of their decision. If Americans are going to be getting these shots, all available data should be brought to the table for consideration. Number 2, the second reason is the advisory committee meetings are, get this, they're streamed live online, and regulatory agencies around the world watch those live streams, and they use the information to help make decisions about vaccines in their countries. 3, they stress that transparency is important. The public doesn't witness conversations among FDA officials or between agency officials and pharmaceutical company executives, but they do get to watch the advisory panel's proceedings. The data was early and had many limitations, but several advisors told CNN that they were concerned about a lack of transparency. U.S. taxpayers, they spent $5 billion on the new booster. $5 billion. Which has been given to more than 48.2 million people in the United States. $5 billion. And who is taking the booster? You tell me who's taking the booster.
People that want to keep their jobs.
I don't. Do you have to get boosted to keep your job? This is crazy what's going on.
Or to visit your family in a convalescent home.
Oh, that's right. You got to be boosted to go, you got to be vaccinated to go into a. I know my friend has her parents in a nursing home, and so she has to be vaccinated to go in. Which again. So, but let me just I have to tell you that the vaccine is safe and effective, and it'll slow the spread and contraction of the virus, and it will keep you from getting ill or hospitalized or dead. Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles, and then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there. I'm here with Aaron Mate, and big news out of Ukraine. Ukraine war, Zelensky advisor resigns over Dnipro remarks. So this guy was a big deal. He had a YouTube channel, and he was like a public relations guy, a spokesperson for Zelensky's cabinet. And here's what happened. Hours after Saturday's missile strike hit an apartment building in Dnipro, Mr. Arestoyevich initially said it appeared that the Russian missile had fallen on the building after it was shot down by Ukrainian air defenses. What happened? Ukraine said the building was hit by a Russian missile, which it does not have the capability to shoot down and is reportedly extremely accurate. Inaccurate, sorry. Ukrainians reacted angrily to Mr. Arastoyevich's initial comments, with some accusing him of strengthening the position of Russian propagandists. Some Ukrainian parliamentarians signed a petition calling for Mr. Arastoyevich to be dismissed as a government official. He later posted a letter tendering his resignation and said he had made a fundamental error. His YouTube channel, has more than 1.6 million subscribers. That's bigger than this channel. And his videos often have more than 200,000 views. That's very good.
Wow.
Unusually for Ukrainian officials, he speaks in Russian rather than Ukrainian. Oh, maybe that's why they're suspicious. I bet you that. Before his resignation offer, his comments had been used by Russian officials to blame Kiev for the strike. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russian attacks do not strike residential buildings and suggested it was caused by Ukrainian air defenses, a conclusion he said had also been reached by some representatives of the Ukrainian side. Ukrainian officials so far have said that at least 44 people died in Saturday's strikes, with several others missing, and that there is minimal chance of finding others alive. Aaron, what do you make of this? To me, it looks like he told the truth, and then he got in trouble, because you get in trouble for telling the truth, not for lying, right?
Jimmy, there's a huge propaganda war going on right now, and you can't have people on the Ukrainian side, which is the side U.S. is supporting, telling the truth. And so the backlash he got for saying this, that it was a Ukrainian air defense missile hitting a Russian missile, was huge, and it forced him out. And he's been a key advisor to Zelensky for a very long time. So him resigning is a very big deal. And apparently, I've heard a rumor, I can't confirm this yet, but I've heard a rumor that he's already been placed on one of those kill lists that they put out.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, I have to confirm it. I have not, but that's what I was told. And that's a rumor out there. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's true, because they put anybody on this list. You know, Roger Waters, Scott Ritter, anybody who's critical of the proxy war narrative gets targeted and gets smeared. And so it's not surprising that he gets forced to resign like this. Look, there's a history of this. Zelensky has a close friend who was his comedy partner and producer on Zelensky's comedy show before he became the president. And after Zelensky became the president and ran on a peace campaign, you know, he was going to bring peace to the Donbass and the civil war that began after the 2014 U.S.-backed coup. He appointed his friend, his name is Sergei Svoko, to a board of reconciliation, of trying to promote dialogue with the rebels in the Donbass to end the war. And so his friend Svoko is from the Donbass. So, you know, he's tied to that region. He knows people there. He's trying to basically bring healing to Ukraine and end the war that began in 2014 and killed thousands of people, and avoid something like we're seeing right now. So Svoko gives a speech to launch his new dialogue and reconciliation campaign. He gets 20 minutes in and he can't finish. And why? Because members of a political group tied to the Azov Battalion, which is a neo-Nazi organization incorporated into the Ukrainian military, rush the stage and attack him, call him a traitor, and they beat him. So Zelensky's friend and advisor can't even finish his speech. And Zelensky, after that, has a choice. Do I stand by my friend? And do I stand by my platform? Or do I side with the far right of Ukraine? And guess what he did? He sided with the far right of Ukraine. So his friend got fired. That was in 2020, the spring of 2020. And so it's voices like that inside Ukraine that when they speak up for peace, when they tell the truth, they get intimidated and attacked by the far right. And time and again, Zelensky has sided not with his own allies and friends, but with the far right. And so now his advisor, who was forced out for telling the truth, or for telling what he perceives to be the truth, because I don't know what actually happened in that missile strike, I should say. I don't know. I don't know if his account is accurate or not. But for saying something that goes against the state line, he had to go.
People and all critical media has been banned in Ukraine. So,
yep.
I mean this is what Americans are cheering and funding. It's just amazing. It's amazing.
And for what, Jimmy? You know, all that had to happen. All that had to happen was that Ukraine, Russia was asking that Ukraine declare itself neutral which is what, by the way, a vast majority of Ukrainians have wanted for many years. If you look at polls, there's never been consistent majority support for joining NATO. It's a very divisive issue. So Russia was basically asking that like Ukraine respect the will of not even of Russia, but of a sizable percentage of its own population, and avoid a situation that U.S. officials have been warning about for a long time, which is that they've said there's cables of this going back to 2007 from William Burns, who was then the U.S. ambassador to Moscow, saying that Russia was warning the U.S. that if Ukraine joins NATO, that would cause a civil war inside Ukraine and would force Russia to intervene and take a side. And Russia didn't want to do that. So the U.S. has known for a long time that this is a red line for Russia. So the U.S. could have respected that and just let Ukraine be neutral and respect the Minsk Accords, which was a peace agreement that was reached to end the civil war that began after 2014, which Ukraine signed. So Russia was basically asking that Ukraine and the U.S. pledge neutrality for Ukraine and respect the peace agreement that it already signed. It's not a big ask. Is it worth sacrificing all these lives just to defy Russia for that? I don't think it is. And the fact that people inside the Ukrainian government now have to get fired and silenced for telling the truth when that truth pierces the narrative needed to sustain this proxy war and keep it going says just what a dangerous moment we're in and how inconvenient the facts are to this proxy war.
Aaron Mate can be found at mate.substack.com. Everybody check that out. Aaron, thanks for joining us. Thanks for that info.
Great to see you, JD. Thanks for having me.
And great job, by the way, last 2 weeks filling in for the show. It was a great job. Appreciate you doing that.
It was an honor. I love the show. I love the community of fans that you have, Jimmy. It was an honor for me to take part. So thank you for trusting me to do that.
Fantastic. Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're here with the Hammer, the Buzzsaw, Aaron Mate. He's known for his show Pushback on YouTube, and his writing appears at his Substack at Pushback on Substack. I like that. All three of those.
None of that's true, Jimmy. It's mate.substack.com, and it's Pushbacks at the grayzone.com. But hey, if people want to go to their own website for me, that's cool.
No, I said at YouTube. Your Pushback's at YouTube, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So I was correct on that one.
Right.
And mate.substack.com.
That's right.
In 2019, Aaron received the prestigious Izzy Award for Outstanding Achievement in Independent Media from Ithaca College. So there you go. What do you think about that?
Because I was the only person in all of lefty media to debunk Russiagate. There was nobody else. I did it all by myself.
So why do we have Aaron here today?
Yeah, I was wondering. He was just here.
Good question.
Because I like a seafoam background.
Oh, I do too, Jimmy.
That is why.
It almost looks like the Mexicali turquoise.
It does. It looks very close to Mexicali turquoise, which I love. That is a nice color. I could go with that color.
For the whole thing? Really?
It is nice. I really think that blue's too blue.
Hey, you're wrong.
What do you think?
So pretty.
Anyway, let's get back to the show.
Yeah.
So why are we here?
Yeah.
So there's this guy here. His name is Jim Risen. So he actually won a Pulitzer Prize, didn't he?
Yes, he did, for some reporting exposing the surveillance state.
So exposing so that's why this is the ultimate irony, what we're going to show you. So something happened with Jim Risen, and it's so egregious that it makes me think he got compromised somehow, because it's crazy what happened. So when Trump got elected, it broke his brain. He was one of those guys. He was calling Trump a traitor, stuff like that. And then he was the worst of Russiagators. And so Aaron, again, who debunked Russiagate and won that award for debunking Russiagate that I told you about, he got Jim Risen on the show and confronted him about, hey, there's no evidence for any of this stuff, right? And so it kind of ended abruptly, and I'm going to play the very end of the interview for you.
I'm not sure what the point of this argument about is, really, frankly. So unless you want to talk about something else, I think I'm done.
Okay, well, I've certainly made my point. I guess one other piece of evidence on this document that I found interesting was that in terms of this spear phishing attempt, which is different, by the way, than hacking as we're normally known as. It's about impersonating someone to try to steal their credentials. The fake emails that the suspected Russian hackers used were to impersonate this company, VR Systems, by the way, which denies that they were ever successfully penetrated. But anyway, it was VRelections@gmail.com. And also no reply automatic service at gmail.com. So the impersonated emails used by these hackers to try to fool VR Systems and then also state election boards was using the domain at gmail.com. So which does not seem to be doesn't seem to me to be.
So you show him something that's so ridiculous out of Russiagate. Really? These sophisticated Russian hackers are using domain at gmail.com. That's what they're doing. And so here's how he responds.
Very sophisticated.
Yeah, okay. So are you one of the people who doesn't believe that there's any evidence that Russia's intervened in the U.S. election?
I'm one of the people who is skeptical of accepting U.S. intelligence community claims without evidence. And that's why I think...
Well, that's fine. That's a completely different debate and discussion than I thought you wanted to have, which is fine, but it's not something I have the time or the interest in pursuing right now. I thought you wanted to talk about why I thought Reality Winner, what she did was a public service.
We agree it was a public service. There's no debate there.
Okay,
and I think you've articulated that. Jim Risen. Are you still there?
Well, good.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Jim, let me ask you also then about the handling of the document itself, because there's been criticism.
Well, I'm not going to get into that. I think we're done. Thanks.
Okay. Well, that was Jim Risen, the national security correspondent of The Intercept, and I guess we have to leave it there.
So he couldn't ever present evidence. He couldn't ever nobody from Russiagate could ever argue their side. It was all made up because it was all made up. That's why there was never ever any evidence for it. And that's how people reacted when they were confronted. That's how he reacted, certainly. And that's, I don't know. That behavior is certainly, whatever. I'm not going to put it.
Well, Jimmy, if I could explain the background to that interview. So recall what I was talking about there was The Intercept came out with this story that they billed as this huge exclusive showing an NSA document that was leaked to them by Reality Winner, it turned out, showing that Russian hackers were penetrating U.S. voting systems. And The Intercept came out with that article at a time when they were under criticism from other media outlets for their skepticism of Russiagate via Glenn Greenwald, because Glenn Greenwald, very famous reporter, co-founder of The Intercept, was very skeptical of Russiagate. And so other people in media and in politics were very angry at The Intercept for Glenn Greenwald doing his job and being skeptical. So they got this leak from Reality Winner, this NSA document purporting to show a Russian hacking operation on U.S. voting systems. And they really hyped it up and said, look, we can Russiagate. That was the point of them doing that, to show to everyone else, no, like we can Russiagate just like all of you. But the problem is the document that they got from Reality Winner actually undermined the case for Russian hacking, because if you look at the actual document, which is what I was trying to talk to Jim Risen about, it doesn't show that Russian hackers are trying to penetrate U.S. voting systems. All it says is that one NSA analyst says that it's my judgment that these might be Russian hackers, but there's a very clear distinction. They say this is not confirmed information, and that's it. And what was the alleged Russian hacking? It was a spear phishing attempt on a company that is involved in U.S. voting systems. And as I pointed out to Jim Risen, it doesn't look like it's sophisticated Russian intelligence if their domain name is gmail.com. That's what I'm trying to talk to Jim Risen about. He wanted to talk about how, as he says, what Reality Winner did was a public service. And I agree. It is a public service. Let's talk about why. Because the document actually shows how weak the case is for Russian hacking. And the problem with The Intercept is, in their drive to show how much they want to Russiagate, they distorted that. And also, by the way, they helped get her exposed, her cover blown, because they rushed out publication and they basically gave information to the government in their midst of rushing this out for publication that helped them identify her. And that's what I want to talk to him about. And that's what he refused to discuss. And that's why he hung up on me.
So that's good background information. And now he tweeted this out on January 6th or 8th. The deep state remains a myth. I'm not kidding. A right-wing conspiracy theory, precisely because the Church Committee brought the intelligence community fully under the rule of law and into the American system of government. Now, when I saw that, I thought that was a parody account. I thought that was a joke. There's no way. I still can't believe it's real. It's real. And he got 40 likes, 732,000 views on that tweet. 732,000 views. He got 40 likes. He got 177 quote tweets and 844 responses. So his ratio is one of the all-time worst ratios in the history of ratios on Twitter. Now you make of what you want on that, but it's on his own thread. It's not like someone came in and he did it to himself. No one else did this to him. He got 40 likes on something that almost had 1 million views, 750,000 view. And it's so my favorite response to him was this. I'm picturing him typing it out, sweating under harsh light in a small room across a table from a man he can't quite see. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. So that joke is saying that he's compromising the CIA is making him do that. Because he's got to be compromised and the CIA has to be making him do that. There's no one that dumb. No one. Even the people who follow him on Twitter aren't that dumb. Well, there are 40 other people, I guess. Someone said, have you any kind of evidence to point that would corroborate this claim? Any legislation that was passed to that effect? Any executive action that reformed the CIA or the FBI? Anything other than the CIA narratives you happily pass on? Since babies and incubators, Jim. And so, Aaron, what's your reaction to Jim Risen tweeting that out?
Well, Jimmy, I first saw that tweet live on your show. Right. When I was hosting it, and because the Jimmy Dore Show producer Malcolm Fleischer found it and put it in one of our segments, and I hadn't seen it when I was reviewing the notes beforehand, so I just read it out on air, and I could not believe that was actually James Risen. I couldn't believe it. I had to believe that was a parody account, but as you say, it's not. That's actually him, and it's mind-blowing for anyone who calls himself a journalist to claim that, especially someone who's reported on the national security state and has seen how they constantly defy the rule of law. Risen won a Pulitzer for his reporting on the Bush administration's mass surveillance program. He saw what came out of that. He saw, for example, Jim Clapper subsequently go before Congress and lie in denying that the U.S. government collects mass data on Americans. He's seen when the U.S. government threatened him with prison. Risen was threatened with prison for his reporting on the intelligence community. He's seen how when the Senate Intelligence Committee was investigating the CIA's torture program, the CIA responded by hacking into the Senate Intelligence Committee's computers to spy on them. Maybe he doesn't know this because he doesn't seem very bright, but maybe he saw that for 10 years, the U.S. intelligence community sided with Al-Qaeda in Syria, a sworn U.S. enemy, the group that attacked the U.S. in 9/11, because that was the side that was most efficient in fighting the Assad government, which the U.S. was trying to overthrow. Was there any rule of law in all these cases? Was there rule of law when the CIA was spying on the Senate Intelligence Committee? In fact, that was the CIA's response to the U.S. Congress's attempt to subject it to the rule of law, was to spy on it. And this guy is a reporter who's supposed to be not being a spokesperson for the intelligence community, but covering them critically. And here he is making that claim. And it's such a commentary to me on the state of journalism today, that this is someone who has all the freedom in the world to say whatever he wants, to report whatever he wants. He works at The Intercept, which is funded by a billionaire. You get paid a very high salary to do nothing. And you have plenty of freedom to do whatever you want. You're not working at a traditional corporation like the New York Times or the Washington Post, which has a history of catering to the establishment. You're supposed to be free to do actual journalism. And this guy chooses to sit there and claim that the intelligence community you're supposed to be covering skeptically is subjected to, it acts within the rule of law. It's an unbelievable statement.
The deep state comes from leftist critiques of U.S. imperialism from scholars like Ola Tunander and Peter Dale Scott. It's not a conspiracy theory, but a social science theory to grapple with the covert lawlessness and despotism of the nominally democratic U.S. Western regimes. I don't know what else to say after that, right? We should just, but there is more to say, because the funniest thing about Risen's tweet is that he himself famously wrote a big story on the spooks illegally spying on Americans. So using only the work of James Risen, we can debunk James Risen. There it is. It says, Bush lets U.S. spy on callers without courts. Published in 2005. National Security Agency officials privately voiced concern about the legality of eavesdropping on Americans and others inside the United States without a court order. There it is. Breaking. From the ACLU, breaking. A federal appeals court just ruled that the NSA's bulk collection of Americans' phone records was legal. I never knew there was actually a ruling on that. That is crazy that someone ruled that was legal. The ruling, which confirms what we have always known, is a victory for our privacy rights. Oh, was illegal. I misread that. Was illegal. Yes, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Okay, there you go. Yes, of course. And then down here, of course, Edward Snowden. Leaks that expose the U.S. spy program. So they have they're collecting every tweet, every text, every phone call you make, every email you make. The NSA is collecting it. They have it. And that's why they were able to know that Tucker Carlson was in communications with people in Russia to try to get Vladimir Putin on his show. And he got a call from someone inside the NSA who's a fan of his and says, hey, they got you. They know you're going to try to meet with Vladimir Putin. He's like, how do they know this? Because they got his texts and they got his emails. And then they were going to leak it to smear him. That's how this works. That's why they're doing this. That's how they have everybody under their thumb. And so, hey, just tell that to Julian Assange that there's no deep state. How could there possibly not be a deep state with Julian Assange? So if I told you a member of the intelligence community lied about Carter Page to get a secret warrant to spy on him for Russia, that would be a conspiracy theory, right? Because the rule of law prevents that sort of thing, right? The rule of law. I love that the mainstream media position is, yes, the CIA did bad things in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, but nobody was ever prosecuted and there were no reforms. So now they don't do bad things today, you conspiracy theorists. Chuck Schumer's going to tell you that there's a deep state. You want to hear him tell us?
Shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
He's talking about the president of the United States should be afraid of the intelligence communities. Now, that's called tail wagging the dog.
And he's happy about it.
And he's happy about it. You can't fuck with the CIA or the FBI or the NSA because they got everything and they'll screw you. That's why I vote for every war. There it is. Or how about Bill Moyers? Essay, Anatomy of the Deep State from Bill Moyers. Here, how about this?
This week on Moyers and Company, longtime insider Mike Lofgren on what he calls the big story of our times, the deep state.
It is, I would say, the red thread that runs through the history of the last 3 decades. It's how we had deregulation, financialization of the economy, the Wall Street bust, the erosion of our civil liberties, and perpetual war.
There's no deep state. There's no deep state. So, Aaron, put on your put on your investigator hat and tell me, or your psychiatrist hat, or whatever hat you want to put on, and tell me, why do you think Jim Risen did that? He had to know there was nothing to get out of that, right?
Well, look, I can only speculate.
Yes,
and
speculate.
The most charitable interpretation, which I always try to err on, is that Trump broke these people's brains. They bought into this idea that he was the singular threat. They bought into this idea that he was installed by Russia and involved in a deep plot. And they've subconsciously internalized that if they go along with all that, they will be welcomed into mainstream platforms and they'll get audiences, they'll get cushy jobs like at The Intercept, where he basically, Jim Risen is a sinecure to sit there, collect, a 6-figure salary and do nothing. So it's a cushy gig and you can preserve it just by going along with the narrative. And look, Russiagate's the ultimate example of this, of a deep state out of control. You had as you just talked about, you have a sitting president investigated as a Russian agent based on nothing, based on fraud. I mean, all the deceptions to the FISA court, the fact the FBI is relying on the Steele dossier, which is the collection of conspiracy theories funded by Trump's opponent, Hillary Clinton. The fact that the official predicate for opening the Trump-Russia investigation is that some low-level Trump campaign volunteer named George Papadopoulos made a suggestion of a suggestion that Russia might want to help Trump. No mention of any kind of conspiracy, no mention even of the stolen emails that are at the heart of Russiagate. The most baseless investigation ever became the all-consuming story of the Trump presidency. And people like Jim Risen, instead of doing their jobs, went along with it. And he speculated that Trump really was a traitor and compromised by Russia. And he bought into every single dumb conspiracy theory, no matter how many times they all got debunked. So, I don't know what gets people to say stuff like this. And yes, you could take the worst interpretation is that they're actually compromised, but that's something I have no evidence for. And so that's not somewhere that I go, because I can't prove that. And what I can say is what they're saying is ridiculous and a complete betrayal of the profession. And that's just an established fact. And that also is meant, by the way, that he's thrown Julian Assange under the bus. So when the CIA was spying on Julian Assange, plotting to poison and kill him, people like Jim Risen were pushing the narrative that he really was, that Assange was just a Russian asset and was somehow a threat to the U.S. When really Julian Assange represents everything that someone like Jim Risen is supposed to be, but isn't.
So for a guy like Jim Risen, at first, success meant decrying Washington's secretive subculture until he got inside and find out they actually pay his mortgage. That's what I think.
But let me say, Jim, he's always been kind of a dupe. He bought into, there was an attempt to smear a Chinese scientist named Wenho Li.
I remember that.
And Risen totally bought into that. So he did he did do a great job on the NSA surveillance, because that came to him from a source, I guess. But he totally took part in the sliming of Wenho Li, which he had to apologize for. So he's always been a dupe for a long time.
Well, that's just a stunner. I don't know how many people really care about Jim Risen, but I care about it because it shows you what The Intercept is, and it shows you what corporate media is. That's what it is. It's there. It's there to exactly what Noam Chomsky said before he lost his mind. They're there to manufacture consent, and for who? For the oligarchy, because we don't live in a democracy. We live in an oligarchy, and they own the media. And that's case closed. So, full stop, as they say. Everybody were doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there. So I've been struggling with this. I did a couple of videos on Monday calling out Jon Stewart, Neil deGrasse Tyson, someone else too. And I always look at it as a personal failure when I get so upset that I call somebody a piece of shit. It is. It is. I try not to do that because I know that I am most likely no better, right? That I'm most likely not. Given, you know what I mean? Like, so, and most of the times when I get that angry, there's personal shit involved, which that's not right. So I think like with Jon Stewart and Bill Maher, I think I'm jealous of them and the platform that they have, that they actually influence the culture. Like Jon Stewart came out and said the thing about the lab leak theory, and holy shit, it was okay to say it again. Mm-hmm. And Bill Maher, same thing. He's been pushing back against the COVID narrative, which has been very helpful. So tip of the hat to Bill Maher, right? So I've given that guy so much guff. And I will in the future, but hopefully not in the same way. Hopefully, I don't want to make it personal. I want to keep, I keep reminding myself, make it about the ideas. Talk about how disgusting those ideas are. Talk about how shitty those ideas are or what they're saying, but sometimes they're just lying. I'm not saying Bill, I don't think Bill Maher ever lied. I mean, I'm sure he has in his life, but that's not why I criticized him. So here, Joe Rogan is setting the example on how to deal with all things COVID. So he showed us how to be skeptical of it. When no one was, and he was correct. And he opened a lot anyway. And now I'm having a hard time, since the evidence is coming out that people were so wrong about COVID in myriad ways, couldn't be wronger. And it turned out to be a disease with low fatality, affects mostly the elderly, like the flu, but a bit different. That's what Bill Gates says now. So total overreaction. Lockdowns hurt more than they help. There's no science behind most of the stuff these people have been doing. So I was pilloried. Now, I don't have a platform like Joe Rogan, right? Now, I have a platform, but it's not like that at all. Joe, it's almost hard for me to wrap my brain around how big his platform is, right? 13 million downloads per podcast. And then they cut him up and he gets... So that's just amazing. So for a 3-hour podcast, that's unbelievable. So now, I'm having a hard time not forget. Well, let's see. Let's just show what.
So
he
these
says.
people that got duped, I have nothing but love for them, and I think the only way we're going to get out of this is if we forgive them. And people are so hesitant to do that, and they're like, "Fuck them, fuck this, fuck that." You can't have a society with "fuck them." Because we are them. They are us. I could have been one of them if I wasn't doing this fucking podcast, okay? If I was just a regular comedian and that's what I did for a living, and I didn't pay much attention to alternative media and podcasts that were discussing this, and people like Peter McCullough or Robert Malone or all these people that were sounding the alarm, if I was one of those people that didn't have the access to these kind of conversations, I would not have a nuanced perspective. And if I had gotten vaccinated and other people didn't, I would be like, fuck those people. I would be just like people I know who I used to be friends with, who now hate me and are angry at me and talk shit about me online.
So that's what I can't get. I'm having a hard time getting past. That's what people who've known me my whole life and all of a sudden pretended that I'm now saying things I don't believe for money, even though I've had a successful show for years and years before COVID. Years and years. I was already selling out theaters by telling an anti-establishment narrative that comes from my ultra-lefty heart. And then people call me all those names and hate me and smear me online. People who've known me my whole life. Now, he says forgive them. I'm having a hard time forgiving them without them asking for forgiveness. And let's listen to the rest of what he says.
I forgive them because I would have been like them if I didn't have the access to the kind of conversations that I've had, if I didn't have the kind of mindset that I have, my personality that is just immune to bullshit. I know people can be sketchy. There's sketchy fucking people out there in the world. And the people that haven't experienced that and don't have that perspective, I can understand why they formed the conclusions that they did, because I could have been them. I 100% could have been them. The only way that we can help each other is for people like you and people like me and other people that have had these other perspectives, the Aaron Rodgers of the world, these people that have been demonized, to forgive people. And if we don't do that, we just continue these ideological tribes that battle each other.
So that's where that clip ends. I agree with him that, and I've said that. I said that about my friend Graham Elwood when he came on the show to argue for mandates, even though he was wrong on the science and didn't even seem to bother to care to know about it, even when I told him on the show. Now, I've said, I don't hate Graham. I don't have animosity towards him because I could have been him, right? Because I was just as scared as everybody else. They scared the hell out of me. I was just as scared. And then I got the vax and I got injured and I looked into it. And as soon as I looked into it, I found out they were lying about everything. Everything. They were lying about masks. They were lying about lockdowns. They were lying about how you handle pandemics. We've had pandemics before. Never before did we handle them, any of them like this. They were lying about herd immunity. They lied about natural immunity. They lied. Pfizer didn't even test to see if their vaccine stops transmission. They didn't even test. And we didn't find that out until recently because a European politician asked a Pfizer executive at a hearing. We didn't find out from a scientist who looked at the data. They didn't want to release their data, by the way, for 75 years. Remember that? I bet you don't. Yeah, remember they didn't want to release the vaccine trial data for 75 years. And still not a question from any of my friends, those people who smear me online who've known me my whole life. Not a question about the COVID narrative. They're on the wrong side of history 1,000%. And I don't know what that is that would let people. So if I saw somebody and I've known them all my life, and then all of a sudden they were saying something that I disagreed with, I wouldn't think all of a sudden, oh my God, they turned into a big grifting lot. Why would I do that? Why wouldn't you call me up and go, hey, why are you saying this stuff? And I would say, I'll tell you, well, here's the video. I had an interview with Dr. Robert Malone, the guy who invented the mRNA vaccine technology, has 9 patents on vaccines, worked at the Salk Institute when he invented the mRNA vaccine technology. He was the first one to do it. A lot of people have built on his work since. When he was on my show for an hour, and he told me everything. Hey, you can't vaccinate your way out of this pandemic. It's not going away like that. You can't vaccinate your way out of it. So I knew immediately mandates were bullshit. And he told me a bunch of other stuff that I'm still scared to talk about on YouTube. But I could forgive anybody who says they're sorry. If someone says they're sorry, I don't know what happened to me. I lost my head. I should have known better. And so that's why you have values. You're supposed to question authority. Always. And we weren't allowed to question. We weren't allowed to question until just last week when Jon Stewart did his video questioning the vax, even though he really didn't. Even though they really didn't. They just lied. They just lied. He just brought on establishment people. I almost said establishment puke. See, I'm making it personal. To just, again, lie to people about it and not really examine what was going on. It was really sad. So, Joe's right, by the way. He's right. So when you forgive someone, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for yourself. So if I don't forgive those people who have no character or integrity and reveal it, because things got hard. So you're supposed to have values. Your values are loyalty, you stand by your friends, and you question authority. You question authority, always. Questions are good. And you weren't allowed to question. I wasn't allowed to tell the truth. People got angry at me for telling the truth about COVID and the vaccines. People got angry at me because I was onto it earlier than anybody else when that the vaccine was not going to get us out of this. And this idea that, if everybody just got vaccinated, that the virus will go away. I knew that wasn't true. And they didn't. They also didn't know that everyone is likely to get COVID no matter what you do. That was back during Delta. Delta was so contagious that you're going to get it no matter what, everybody. And then you'll have natural immunity, which they lied about. They lied about that. They lied about gain of function. They lied about funding gain of function. They lied about herd immunity. They lied about everything. And they're still doing it. And so Joe's right. I don't know. So when I saw that, I just was like, because it challenges me to be a bigger person, right? So now there it is, and I'm going to let Joe Rogan be the bigger man than me. So now it's like challenging me to be a better person and a bigger person. And I got to tell you, I really got hurt during COVID. I really got hurt. It really bothered me that people I've known all my life could act like that. All my life, I've known these people. I mean, for 30 years. People I've known for 30 years. And you can change the past, right? Because they wrecked my past with them now. Now it's all bittersweet. It's all mostly bitter. But if they apologize, then you could change it back. Anyway, God damn Joe Rogan being the bigger man, huh? God damn it. So I've done the videos where I say, no, you forgive after they make a sincere act of contrition. But he's right. You can't wait for someone else to apologize. You have to just do it because you're doing it actually for yourself when you apologize, when you forgive someone. And so I guess we're going to find out if I love myself enough to forgive other people before they ask for my forgiveness. Because that's what you're really doing, right? That's what you're really doing, right? It's like, no, I want to be upset. Well, who does that serve? I want to stay hurt and angry. Who does that serve? Nobody. It doesn't serve anybody. God damn Joe Rogan. And if that guy, I mean, I didn't take it half as bad as that guy took it, right? Jesus Christ, the stuff they did to Joe Rogan. And the fact that he could still be like that, wow. That is what a solid dude. That's all. That is more solid than me. Although maybe I will achieve that soliditude. We'll see. We'll see. I'll let you know going forward if I've managed to accomplish forgiving those motherfuckers.
Well, I will interject here, Jimmy, because there are times when you have dreams when you are outside of. So here you go. When I have dreams, and the people who hate me the most in the world, and I've had the most acrimony with, people who I've gone to war with, they're in my dreams, and we get along. Nope. It's I've said this before. It's like if you've ever acted in a play, it's like after the play is over, everybody changes their clothes and you go out for a drink, and it's like we just changed our clothes and we're waiting for someone else to get dressed, and we're all going to go for a drink, and we're all just talking. That's what it feels. Hey, yeah. Remember how we hated each other during the play? Remember how we really we got each yeah, that was good. That was good. It was good drama. That was good drama, huh? Yeah, it was exciting. It was fun. And let's go have a drink. So that's how it feels with those people. And so it is a reminder that we are just playing a role, and we actually are.
Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there.